Well. Christmas is in the books. 2025 around the corner. And what a glorious day it is to be in crypto. Yes, Bitcoin might be down by a few $1,000s, but my hopes are up. And well, new incoming president is going to shape America to be the crypto capital of the world. We're going to talk about Bitcoin Reserve as the U.S.'s Bitcoin Reserve, Bitcoin Strategic Reserve, what that means for the price of Bitcoins. And not only is it my opinion, but other experts are chiming in on what this means for crypto. Also, we have some nation states on the outside looking in saying, we don't want no Bitcoin here. And well, Germany, have you not learned anything? Take a look no further than our friends that build Mercedes and say, hey, why'd you sell your Bitcoin at $40,000 or whatever price it was? 60,000, whatever it was, you're at a loss. And so we got that to cover. Also, we got some breaking news out of the Cosmos ecosystem. We got some news on Ethereum, Phantom. We're going to talk about your favorite projects like Kaspa, ICP. A lot to unpack today. So sit back, put on your seatbelts, and we'll see you on the other side of our intro graphic. So it's your boy, Big Rob, back in the house. Welcome to Sin City Crypto. If it's your first time checking us out, we're the entertainment-focused cryptocurrency channel where we take old, boring, stale information, repackage that whole thing up in a fun and sexy way. Typically, I have my co-host David here in studio. My man's on vacation. Did you steal the presents and go out of town, David? What happened? Why aren't you here?
A lot happened this weekend. My kids learned something they should have learned a while ago about Santa Claus. I'll leave it there. There's a certain child in the room right now that can't hear the news. But yeah, man, we decided we try to do Christmas every year, and so came out to Big Bear hoping for snow, but no snow. So not only did we not get snow, but we got a retracement from Bitcoin. So yeah.
Yeah. So you're telling me Satoshi's not real? Is that it? Satoshi's make believe?
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
The kids know. My daughter doesn't know.
The news is out.
Leave her out.
The news is out. Did you tell him yourself? Is that what it was? You look like a guy that would do that. You get like mad, like somebody spilled hot chocolate, be like, he's not real.
No, long story short, something was found that was not supposed to be found, and well, one of my children is very smart, and so he caught on. And we're like, look, we can't lie to these kids anymore. They're grown-ups now. About to start putting them to work and paying some mortgage bills here, and so yeah.
Well, so I did want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas. I know we weren't streaming yesterday. We were enjoying some time with the family. So to all of you, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and we are very thankful for the community here. We're thankful for everyone showing up. I know we got a lot of new faces in the chat. I'll try to get through the names today, but I'm running the helm of the ship today, so I don't know if I'll have time to write down all everybody's names. But anyways, a lot going on. First of all, Bitcoin is at 95,000. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, we do got Magic Internet Money joining us in around 10 minutes. He'll be going over the chart. So if you are excited about price action for Bitcoin, I know we're also going to maybe take a look at Kaspa and some other of your favorite projects as well. So we'll get into those here shortly. But let's jump right into some Bitcoin news, right? So Bitcoin at 95,000, and well, here's there's contradictory evidence here. So there's two different sides of the story here. We got Binance Bitcoin reserves hit January levels. So we know that the liquidity is drying up as far as OTC, how much Bitcoin these exchanges hold. And, we have the likes of MicroStrategy, we have nation states, we have pension funds, retirement accounts, company after company is coming out and saying they're buying Bitcoin. And at the end of the day, there's only 900 Bitcoin mined per day. It was 900 Bitcoin mined per day. Post-halving, we're mining 450 Bitcoin per day. And so there's only so much Bitcoin to go around. And as these big whales, these big institutions come in and buy Bitcoin in their mass buys, right? They come in, MicroStrategy is not buying in it with the traditional DCA strategy where they come in and they buy, 50 Bitcoin a day, 200 Bitcoin a day. No, they're just pulling the trigger intermittently, buying thousands of Bitcoin for billions of dollars, multiple companies coming in, buying millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin and in single purchases. And so puts a shock on the supply, which we see here from Binance. So the reserves have hit January level. So what is January level? Why is that significant? Well, we know that in January, we saw Bitcoin levels reach very, very lows or historic lows on the exchanges. And in turn, the next month, we saw in February, Bitcoin have massive breakouts. That's where we saw that 70 cents Cardano. Remember, Cardano had went from 20 cents up to 70 cents. We also saw Solana get the big move that it had. And so the entire crypto ecosystem really flourished when the levels of Bitcoin were down to where they were. Taking a look back at some other highlights from this article. You got Bitcoin reserves on Binance, the world's largest exchange, have dropped to new levels not seen since 2024, just 2 months before the price skyrocketed 90% in March. So February, March was when we saw that big run. And if Bitcoin flows in the same pattern with its current price at 98,000, which we know it's at 95 at this moment, we're looking around $187,000 Bitcoin within the matter of months. I don't know if it'll get quite that high, but I am in the camp that I think within 2 to 3 months, with Trump coming into office, perhaps getting executive orders and being very progressive and forward thinking with government policy on Bitcoin, I think that we do see a giant price rally. And so but I got a couple other things to piggyback off of this, but I'm gonna send it over to you, David, first on what do you think about, you think Binance reserves dropping down? This isn't just Binance. This is also Coinbase. I don't have the numbers pulled up, but basically OTC is drying up. There's only so much institutional Bitcoin left. I did have a conversation with a buddy of mine, and they had said like, hey, if there's these big buys going on from whales and institutions, why hasn't the price reflected on it? And I tried to explain to him, like, well, they haven't quite reached the levels of exchanges needing to dip into the order books. What the price is pretty much reflected off of the buying and selling and people buying more Bitcoin than there are sellers, and then the price slowly growing, and that's off the back of retail. What do you think about reserves, Bitcoin?
I think it's a fair question for people to ask, especially people that don't necessarily haven't been in the space for a while, or maybe are, this is their first cycle, or they've been kind of dabbling for a little bit. Is like, hey, you keep telling us that people are buying Bitcoin. Why is the price not going up? I think it's a fair question. It's so intricate and kind of interwoven everything with Bitcoin. But as far as the exchanges, what this typically signals is, hey, people are pulling Bitcoin off exchanges and they're putting it into cold storage. And the idea here is that you only do that if you want to hodl, right? If you're getting ready to sell, you need an off ramp. You send your Bitcoin to the exchange, and then that metric people measure and say, hey, we're about to get X amount in sell pressure. And the opposite is true in this case of, hey, why else would they be pulling Bitcoin off of an exchange? It's to put it in cold storage and to not sell it. So it's interesting. History doesn't always repeat itself, but it does tend to rhyme. And so do I think we're going to get that 90% push in the price of Bitcoin? I'm kind of with you on this one, Rob. I don't know if it's 90%, but I definitely think it kind of aligns with, you look at previous bull cycles, we really get a kick in the butt in the first quarter of the year, right, where the top is in, and which a lot of people are saying 2025 at some point. I know me and you, we think it's going to be sometime October, November, December, so Q4 of next year. Some people are saying because we got the all-time high before the halving, it's going to be a little accelerated and pushed forward. So we might get it maybe April, May, June. I'm still in the camp if we get it in Q4. But if that's the case, then we should see a pump in January. Now, whether it's going to be just a coincidence that the exchange reserves have fallen off a cliff for January and it kind of lines up, or if it's just cycle after cycle. But Yeah, I'm kind of in the same camp, dude. I don't know if it's going to be 90%. So obviously, as the market cap grows and liquidity grows, I think the moves are less violent to the upside and also to the downside as well. But I can see coming out of January, $135,000, $140,000 Bitcoin.
Yeah, uh, I think that Bitcoin itself was undervalued at its price back in January of last year, and so I think that people realize that, like, hey, post halving, what should Bitcoin's price be trading at? And I think that people just were like, hey, you know what, undervalued. More buyers are seeing an opportunity to make significant gains in the short term. And so I think that's why we got that. Now, I do think that Bitcoin is still undervalued, but I think the percentage of people that are also share that mentality has also shrunk at this point. And so buying Bitcoin at 100,000 versus buying Bitcoin at 40,000, vastly different is scenarios. And so now I do think that we do get a price accumulation. I don't think it's going to have as much euphoric of a run as it did before. However, you know what? The U.S. is having their Bitcoin strategic reserve, and perhaps it does play out at 90%. Maybe we do get a historic run up, and maybe we look at a $200,000 Bitcoin in the short term. I mean, we know that Bitcoin has the potential for these giant green God candles, as people call them. And you know what? If the U.S. is a net buyer and Donald Trump is going interview after interview or press conference after press conference discussing their plan for Bitcoin, it's not only something that's aired here in the U.S. I mean, you go to any airport terminal or anywhere around the globe, and you got CNN right there on every television. And so think about every person globally that's traveling that has a connection to mainstream media like CNN or Fox or NBC, even outside the U.S., you're seeing Donald Trump, the president, talking progressively about Bitcoin. Now, I'm not the only person that thinks that there might be a concern here as far as failure to launch for Bitcoin. Now, you do have some capital inflows, so some data and analytics. We do have by Ali charts, capital inflows into crypto markets have been declining since December 10th, dropping from 134 billion to 100 billion as of today. This basically is a measure of liquidity in the market, at least for the broader crypto market. And so you can only have a breakout if you have the money on the side, right? So you can only buy with the ammunition that you have, right? And so doesn't bode well for the price of Bitcoin, but just one metrics to keep an eye on. But one narrative here, I think we briefly touched on, and I'm just gonna expand on this, and then after this, we'll bring Magic on and talk some charts. But we do have from Watcher Guru. He says, Justin, U.S. Congress expected to prioritize crypto legislation in 2025. This is not Donald Trump expected to pass executive order, which we've heard rumors of. This is the U.S. Congress. So we know that the president signs off on the bills, but Congress is the one that makes them. And so pretty bullish there. Also, you have a U.S. Bitcoin reserve could slash national debt by 35% by 2049. This is not a buzz piece opinion article by CoinDesk. Or Cointelegraph. This is Van Eck. So Van Eck, one of the biggest names in finance, said that the U.S. Bitcoin reserve could slash national debt if the cryptocurrency increases by 42 million a coin by 2049. So the United States could reduce its national debt by 35% in the next 24 years if it creates a reserve of 1 million Bitcoin in line with Cynthia Lummis's bill. Van Eck also assumes that Bitcoin's price will increase to $42 million. Now, this is a massive forward-thinking or macro view on the price of Bitcoin. 24 years from now, that puts us out at damn near 2050. This sounds like a sci-fi movie. But if you go out that far, $42 million per Bitcoin. If the U.S. is still a holder at that point, if they were to try to realize their gains and sell They could slash the debt by as much as 35%. I know that Cynthia Lummis at the Bitcoin conference down in Nashville did say that she could eliminate the national debt as long as they don't keep incurring more debt. And then also we have Bitcoin's price might hit 1 million the next year if this happens, and this is by the Bitwise executive. So a lot of major companies are coming out here and saying like, hey, you know what? Bitcoin's price, we're expecting to explode, not only in the short term, but long term. But there's one company or one country, Japan, well, they reject Bitcoin for national reserves. And so Japan's government has decided against incorporating Bitcoin into its national reserves, citing volatile nature and the fact that it falls outside the scope of traditional foreign exchange assets. Japan's economy is doing really well right now. So keep doing what you're doing, Japan.
Real good.
Keep doing what you're doing, Japan. I know this kind of stacks onto what we were already saying about forecasting Bitcoin's price. We got the strategic reserve. But this isn't just, the crypto degen. This isn't your crazy uncle at the dinner table talking about crypto. We're talking about VanEck, Bitwise, which, essentially is a traditional Bitcoin company, I guess, if you want to call them that. But and Congress about to step up to the table and pass some legislation. What do you think about the direction of Bitcoin and what that means for price? Do you still think that February Donald Trump comes in, executive orders are passed, strategic Bitcoin reserve, Bitcoin $200,000 sometime before? Before I would say the summer next year.
Well, you have a lot more on the table now. Apparently, we're going to buy the Panama Canal. Apparently, we're going to make Canada into the 51st state, and apparently, we're going to buy Greenland.
What if we offer Bitcoin? Because I think if you're offering the paper dollar trash fiat to what was it, Holland? Who the hell owns Greenland, anyways? One of those Danish countries, one of the ones that make the good pastries. I'm not sure which one it is, but anyways, I say make an offer in Bitcoin. You know what? Be like, hey, sell the fiat. Be like, hey, look, we'll give you 200,000 Bitcoin for Greenland. Like, you know what? If there was ever a reason to sell your Bitcoin, you know what? To buy a giant landmass, you know what? Sell it now, buy Greenland, and then buy 1 million Bitcoin over the next 4 years anyways. Just, buy it back. But, what do you think? You think the U.S. should sell their Bitcoin for Greenland?
I don't know. But, going back to the article with Bitwise, Jeff Park, the strategic guy over at Bitwise, he said he puts us at a 10% likelihood that we get the strategic reserve bill. And he says that's the only thing that can take Bitcoin to $1 million. And so it's interesting there. But I want to go back to a point you made like 10 minutes ago, is as the price of Bitcoin goes up, less and less people believe it's still undervalued, right? You're going to get the people that, like the people that believe Bitcoin's going to get to 42 million, or Michael Saylor thinking the Bitcoin's asset class is going to be a $200 trillion market cap. You're going to have those people. But I agree with you. I think you made a great point. As the price continues to goes up, less and less people are going to think that it is still undervalued compared to what it can be. And so you'll start seeing money maybe flow away from maybe going into Bitcoin and going into some other crypto assets.
But David.
And so I think...
David, hear me out on this one. So if people think Bitcoin is undervalued and they say, look, man, you know what? Or people don't think it's as undervalued as you said, right? And so you have the everyday person. Maybe you have an investor that has a portfolio. And like, you know what? $130,000 Bitcoin doesn't sound that great to me. But what I think if you look outside the scope of retail, traditional investor, and institution and their valuation of Bitcoin, what if a country says, and Japan dropped the ball here, but what if a country looks at the U.S. and says they're a buyer, and maybe they're looking at it like, hey, from a long-term time horizon, Bitcoin is massively undervalued. I mean, we have VanEck coming out here and saying that this should be worth $42 million per Bitcoin in 20-something years. And I think that you have countries that are going to look at Bitcoin as undervalued, and perhaps traditional or retail and institutions don't look at it that way, but maybe countries do. And where's the money? I mean, if you're talking about like, hey, retail is just, they're one citizen, right? Retail is a citizen of a country. Who controls the money of all the citizens is the country. So I think that maybe countries come in and they say, like, you know what, Bitcoin's undervalued. Let's buy this right now.
Are you trying to change the meaning of retail?
Yeah, exactly.
Look, that might not be here, but retail from the countries as a form of retail.
That's right. I do want to bring on our friend of the channel. He normally joins us on Tuesdays, but we have in holiday spirit, we asked Santa to bring Magic Internet Money on to discuss the charts. We had a lot of volatility. You know what? We saw almost $100,000 Bitcoin on Christmas, and then we pulled back down to 95. But let's bring a friend of the channel, Magic Internet Money. Hey, what's up, my dude?
Hey guys, happy holidays. How we doing?
How was Christmas, man?
Christmas was great. Kids had a good one. I got the traditional dad presents. I got socks and some, lounge pants. Couldn't be happier.
It's funny. Dad's the one that has to give all the gifts, right? You work all year, you're saving money, paying the bills. Come early December, you're taking on massive debt you got to pay off for the next 2 months. And you know what? What's the big thanks that we get here? Socks, tie, underwear, maybe some a mug, customized mug, a T-shirt with best dad.
I got a pack of.
You got a pack of what? I don't know. What'd you say?
Papers you put in the printer, the computer paper.
You got a pack of paper. I got a ream of paper.
My
sweet
smartass. He goes, "Well, Dad, you yelled at us for using all the computer paper, so I bought you more."
Well, you know what? You can do a lot with that computer paper. You can print out spreadsheets. You can write notes. It's a tool. It's a tool for success, and your kids are looking out for you, man. You got smart kids over there, brother. All right. So Magic, let's get into some charts. I know we're gonna maybe start off with Bitcoin. I know we wanted to take a peek at Kaspa a little later. We've had a lot of back and forth with the community. Half the community is all like, "Wow, man, you guys, this is a great price." The other half of the community, they're calling us retards for buying or whatever it is, or holding. We're gonna miss the bear market. We're gonna miss the bull market. People say. I'm always in the camp that, like, if something has sound fundamentals in a community, once it consolidates for really long periods of time, you usually get that giant breakout. That's just my history has always told me, giant communities, long-term consolidation equals big breakout. But we'll get into Kaspa in a moment. What's the Bitcoin's charts looking like?
Sure.
How are we feeling?
I feel pretty good about where we're at. We were talking about potentially maybe making a move to like 111 to 112, but in reality, 108 was still resistance. There was a setup for a short there. But you've had a pretty big breakout of this range, which is a pretty large one. And we kind of go back to the well of where we're at in the cycle, because I was listening to you guys talk a little bit about it before I came on. And, this was our prior consolidation here, which was not as long, which is kind of surprising because this at the time was a very big, boring triangle that played out post-halving. The halving took place here, I believe. I've got it marked in a folder, actually. The halving was here. And you can see it just went sideways until what? You got a really big range here before dumping, and everyone thought it was not going to go back to 20K. And the reason I'm highlighting that is recently I saw someone highlighting the 2021 top here. And they were referring to this similar market structure, but this is a very specific pattern called a 3 drives pattern, actually, and it's very symmetrical. So I know we have overlap in followers, so I'm not challenging him. I'm just saying I would see it differently. This is what they were referring to, the people that are calling the top. It's important for context here as we get in. And your target always ends up being the low. Well, not always. It's a gold pocket, then the low. And if you look at it, that's exactly what you did. You took this low by just a hair, so it's pretty sweet pattern. I remember trading that in 2021, and specifically a bearish 3 drives is very symmetrical. You can see you have the 1272 expand like gold pocket retraces, right? So very, very easy pattern to trade after that once you get the lower high, especially. Now, moving on to where we are, I'm not really seeing the same pattern here. What I am seeing out of this is very similar to what we did here. Okay, so notice when we had that volatility and that big break from 9,000 all the way up to about 12, give or take, 12.5 actually. You had that big dark dildo, one we haven't seen in a long time. Those ones that wipe out both ends of the market. You know, we don't see those
double-sided
to earlier. The double-sided, we don't see them as much because there's more money in the market. It's harder to do that. Create a lot of volatility is needed now. And when we look at where we are, you actually see some similarities. We have that. We have a large consolidation, and we have what looks like potentially a head and shoulders, which is what played out there. It wasn't the end of the bull market after that. Now, it'd be important to know where is the criteria for, you know, that level. For this one, it was like $9,800. Your audience is probably like, this dude scrolls so much. But we're hopping between years here, guys. So, you know, we're time traveling right now. Just time traveling the day after Christmas. So you can see how similar these already look. They look very, very similar. I don't think that you should ever trade based off of like fractals or anything like that. But, you know, market structure can repeat. And it seems to be doing so fairly nicely after the halving breakout. So you can see all you did was you back tested your structure here. That's all you're doing. So in the instance that we got something similar, you would just want to be looking at price action the same way and saying, okay, where is my true invalidation on this? It would probably be back all the way down here still. Because if you look at this on a weekly basis, you know, there's no confirmed weekly reversal until you're pretty much below 73K again. It's pretty far down there. So this thing can drop substantially, just like it did before from 12.5 to 9,800. You know, I don't know what the exact percentages on that off the top of my head are, but, you know, we'll call it $3,000. That's a 30% drop, give or take. If you were to see something similar, and I'm not saying you will, you could very well see this thing back at like 80K. And we have some things to statistically that we should be not expecting anything. We should never expect could have higher than it doesn't. So again, this month does end in 5 days, depending on the collection of data cutoff. So if you go back like to the full history of Bitcoin, I believe it's like 72 or 73. If you cut it off with like the last 100 or something, it's a little bit higher, but it's negligible. So this is your monthly average. You would expect that to be hit. Now, we are within spitting distance of it at 95, going down to 87.7. The other thing you have to look at is where are my incoming averages? Meaning, what does it look like for the incoming year in terms of these averages when they print? Because we know that these are going to strike at a specific rate as well. And we need to forecast for where they're going to be at. And if you look, you know, the monthly is actually higher because this monthly candle is here. But if you look at the 60-day, which is here, the quarterly, and you look at the 6-month, the semi-annual, and then the annual here, they're all much lower. So it does say that post-halving breakout, it was glorious. It was a lot of volatility. People got very excited. We hit some resistance, went a little higher than people thought. Because I think the big number after it broke out of like 9,200 was everyone was looking for 11.5 because it was the macro 50% mark, if I recall.
Hey,
and so now
Magic.
It ran to 12.5. So, what's up?
You know, I don't mean to cut you off. I know you're giving us some downside kind of projections. But in you know, you kind of finish your thought there. But also, you know, I don't know if you caught it, but we were discussing some major institutions, the likes of
Sure.
VanEck, also some other players talking about the potential for Bitcoin's price next year. And I know that, you know, the year's coming to an end and a lot of people are coming up with their 2025 predictions. But, you know, when you're looking at Bitcoin price or even any asset realistically, whether it's an altcoin or Bitcoin, you're talking about price discovery going into a bull market. Do you just simply look at round psychological numbers, like 120, 150, 180, things of that nature? Or do you have like measured moves from history where you would like line up some price targets for Bitcoin and where you would expect resistance perhaps?
Yep, I certainly do. So this is the last cycle right here. And what I did was I projected this zone to be the high for Bitcoin in 2021. And you can see that we actually came back to it, which was kind of the caveat. It was, I thought I had nailed it already here. And then when it came back at the 1-to-1, I had closed this short. And, I was long and I started getting out of my longs at 58K, but I didn't go short here. I did the exact same style of projection for this one, but I accounted for diminishing returns. Okay. And so when you do something like that, you actually end up with this zone here. And it's a very similar size, which it's a big box. It's 22%. But again, this was 19%. And when I put that out there and it ended up being correct, people were it was just based on Fibonacci convergence. And if I did the same style of expansion, I have 101 to 124,000 being kind of the area of interest for me, meaning that we could see a rejection here, which we're seeing now. And this was kind of the red box that you see over here, very similar in terms of time breakdown. Is all I'm trying to do is, extrapolate time in a similar fashion to when you found resistance and then project that for this cycle. So yeah, we're at resistance. And can it push into this box deeper? Yes, certainly can. But it can also dump and then come back and work its way. And I actually think the best thing for Bitcoin would be to, drop kind of like it did all the way back over here and consolidate for a while and then make a push. Because I think that if it just pushes through here, you guys were talking about an early cycle. I think that's where you start having that conversation. If this thing is pushing to 120K and just redlining into like January and March is the time pivot here. Then I start looking at this one-to-one where a traditional cycle ends. Go ahead.
I do think that we do get a euphoric price run, right? I do think that if Trump does what we're expecting him to do with crypto policy in the U.S., I think it's hard to argue on a downside price, right? For Bitcoin. I think that people overreact. I think that people are going to get way too euphoric, and perhaps we do see a run up to that 180, 150, whatever the number is. But I do think that is short lived and sells off. And so I wouldn't be surprised to see, a big rally in February, March, and then a big pullback during this, maybe August, maybe we're reconsolidating, coming back down a little bit.
I think what I had was if it was going to make that big push through that box that I kind of showed you there, it'd be looking for something more traditional like this would be kind of what it'd be just the next target realistically. I believe it was, right here. So if it pushes through that, like this zone between 101 and 124, how much higher can it go? I don't think you want to overlook, 140 or so, but like I start looking towards more like 170, 180. I think you were saying like, do big round numbers mean anything? If I know that the target might be 174, it wouldn't be a terrible idea to start taking some profits at 150, unless you're just a hodler for life, which you're just excited and happy to be here, which is great. But if you're trading and you're doing this, trying to, I wouldn't say time cycles, but strategically allocate some percentage of your portfolio to risk in terms of trying to, time market moves. That's how I would look at it. So yeah, you could see 174, 183. Absolutely. And if this does pull back, kind of like we've talked about, which it is, I'm looking at these as opportunities. These are areas where people are like, well, should I buy Bitcoin now? I'm like, what do we always say? Buy the dip, right? Well, I mean, the dip is starting to dip. And so you need to start looking at areas that make sense to buy, 90K. The previous quarters here, these averages are great places to start looking because they're the average of price from the prior quarter or the prior year. And this is all the way down at 81. So would you be happier if you bought at 90 or 81? Probably a very negligible amount of happiness between the two of them. But at least you have a rhyme or a reason on why you're buying these levels at that point, where it's just like, okay, I know the averages here, these get hit at a certain rate. So I should expect price to probably revisit it. And when it does, I'm bullish still until X. And when this happens, I know that I was potentially wrong on my thesis. Until then, though, I'm looking at those as opportunities where people, if they're trying to get that buy, because when you talk about like these guys giving these ridiculous numbers, we can go back to every cycle and these institutions come around and say, oh, Bitcoin's going to 100,000 or going to, 250K or whatever it is. And they're pumping all this news out. And meanwhile, the market's topping, and price is dropping. So it's kind of the Kramer effect, I
was gonna say, it's interesting that, you're saying 80,000 almost with hesitancy, right? I can feel you saying like it could go down to 80,000. And, I remind the viewer here, just in October, we were at 60,000. So if we would just rewind 60 days and say, hey, You know what Bitcoin's going to do in the next 2 months? Bitcoin's going to go from 60,000 to 108,000, you know, rally almost to 2x and then pull back to 80. I think if you were to lay that scenario out back into someone just 60 days ago, they'd have been like, that's great. We'll take it. And so to hear numbers like 80,000, I know that some people are like, ugh. But realistically, it's
a little gross to talk about, but you know, there's a lot there. And one thing that you guys will see me use a lot this next year isn't just the yearly levels that I've been highlighting with you guys, but I went ahead and projected for the halving cycle. And so I use levels based on session time, and I've been working on the halving, and the last halving looked like this. Let me get rid of that guy and this guy. And obviously this is our prior cycle high, but you know, these were the levels here. And it actually just nailed the high, like almost to the T, just playing these. You know, obviously you want to have other things, but these allowed you to trade in and out of Bitcoin daily and take, you know, setups to work off of. And I've done the same thing for this current one. Those were all hindsight. Those are back tested levels because I wanted to make sure it worked. And I've gone to the BLX and gone back even further, you know. So for us now, and I'll get rid of this because this is a linear tool, not a logarithmic tool, which we're in. You know, this is what it looks like. If we were just to trade only these levels, do no other technical analysis, just lay out what we've projected for the next 4 years, these things have been pretty much gold, you know? So that's what I plan to do, is to continue doing that. And I haven't found a pattern for like how many deviations away you get from like your zero line, which is all the way down here, which we're not going to probably hit. It's all the way down here at 40,000. So from there, we're just projecting levels based on that. And I added in the half levels because there's roughly $14,000 between a 5 standard deviation or a 3 and a 4. So if you go with a half, you're at like 70, you know, whatever, 100, which to me is plenty. That's $7,000 is a good amount of price that you can play with without overcrowding a chart. So I'm still looking at prior cycles and volatility to see if I can't figure out some way to project deviations for volatility and price movement or diminishing volatility to see how many deviations we go up. Because in prior cycles, like in 2015 to 2020, we went up like 99 deviations of the high, and it caught the high almost to the dollar, which was great. But that's so many deviations. And then the last cycle was 16, you know, this cycle, we're only at like the 4.5, you know, so we're seeing volatility a little bit. So I'm not necessarily looking for diminishing returns. I'm looking for kind of like you were talking about, alluding to, diminished volatility. And what can I do with that from a standardization process to make it so that I can just have levels to trade off of, so I can open my chart and just rock and roll. But then, you know, we get into the whole, like, how high can this go? And that's where the second piece of that comes in. But anyway, I'll get off that soapbox.
We have a very prominent Kaspa community. And as I was alluding to earlier, I feel like the community has started to divide. And, you know, initially, a lot of people that were early investors in Kaspa had made a massive earning, right? And the problem, though, is that over the course of 2024 is that we've just seen really a big consolidation, right? And so I know a lot of holders of Kaspa are thinking like, hey, am I going to miss the bull market and get stuck in a narrative that isn't really playing out? And that isn't my opinion. It's just what I've been reading from the chats and from, you know, Twitter. But I still hold what I was saying earlier, is that if you have a very, very strong community, a giant community, and you have a community-driven project, getting exposure to those or getting a position on that during long consolidations, especially in a bull market, is typically bode very well for me in the past. So for that reason, I'm extremely bullish on Kaspa, and I think some of the community is, but some people are losing faith. Do you look at the Kaspa chart and have hope for the people that think that it's going to 2, 3? When I say hope, and I don't mean going from the where's the current price of Kaspa? It was around like
11 cents.
11, 12 cents. Do you think, you know, I know a lot of people are expecting that dollar Kaspa. I know that's quite a ways away from where we're at now, almost a 10x. But do you think that we get a big rally out of Kaspa, or do you think that people should evaluate their position? What's your kind of take on Kaspa chart?
Jump in, Magic. Before Magic gets in, can I jump in real quick? What is wrong with some of you people, man? Seriously, like, you guys get into a token, You say, I got into it because it does this, and it's going to solve the trilemma, and it's the fastest proof of work, and it's got a great community, and the devs are cool.
It's been a year though.
I
It's been
know,
a
but-
year.
but
And the rest of the market's moving.
But as soon as the price starts going down a little bit and consolidates, like every freaking token does, people just throw in the towel. They start shitting on the community. They start shitting on the devs, and they say this is not this. Like, if nothing has fundamentally changed except price going up and down because people are buying and selling, why are you guys freaking out? Like, Kaspa's still doing everything it said it was going to do a year and a half ago when you first invested in it, and even more. And if you look at the roadmap and what they're doing, it's getting even better. And so I don't understand why people panic and start trashing the project when the price moves sideways and then it's another coin's turn to pump. Cardano was trading sideways for 9, 10, almost a year. Everything was running. Solana was running. Near was running. Aptos was running. Everyone was running. But guess what? Cardano had its time too. Ran from 30 cents to $1.20. It's just it is what it is, dude. You can't expect something to go up forever. It doesn't work like that. So if you're gonna be in a project and you outline your reasons why you're in the project, don't start shitting on it when it starts consolidating and going sideways. Now, if something fundamentally changes, one of the devs quits, or something falls flat, then sure, reevaluate. But stop guys, just get out of your emotions for 1 second. That is how people get rich. They buy the fear, right? When people fear sell their bags, smart investors who've done their research come in and they buy them. And they're the ones that make the money on the big run up. While the people who sold because they're afraid of the price going down 20% and staying there for 3 months are panic selling their bags because, oh my God, the project, nothing has changed. It's gotten better. Believe it or not, it's going to get better in 2025. So if you don't like the project, get out of it, but stop talking crap about it. If you love the project, stop panic selling into 20% dips. Sorry, Magic, go ahead.
You're all right, man. You guys probably get a lot more feedback on Kaspa than I do. So
very frustrating, Magic, because I talk to a lot of developers. I talk to people from the Kaspa community, like some of the top level executives there, like one of the devs from Kaspa, like the Cardano, and they're like, there's so much time and money that goes into these things, and people just don't understand what we're trying to do, what it takes to get there, and the time it takes to get there. And everyone is so spoiled with instant gratification. It's like, let these guys do their jobs, man. Be there to support them. Again, if you don't want to be in the project, then just sell and leave. But if you get into it because you believe in the project, don't throw in the towel and don't shit on the developers and the people building the network out because the price hasn't moved up to your liking in a month, in 2 weeks. And so that's just the frustrating part, man, is there's a lot of great people, a lot of great projects that are building, but building takes time. You guys got to understand, we're literally trying to change the entirety of the financial system. It doesn't happen in a month, in a year, in a week. And if you don't have the patience, don't complain when the people who bought Bitcoin in 2013 and held, who are now sitting on from $1,000 to $10 million, they sat and they waited for the thing to mature. Everyone wants to point out and say, oh, well, look how lucky this guy is. No, he's not lucky. He had a plan. He stuck to it. He didn't sell his bag because he was scared the price went down because he believed in something. If you don't believe in it, that's a different story. So it's just very frustrating. Like, people, guys, if you're going to get into a community and you're going to hold a token and you believe in what they're doing, have some faith, man. Have some faith. Back them up. Support them. Do what you can. Be a part of the solution, not part of the problem. That's just my 2 cents. But go ahead, Magic.
You got it, man. Yeah, I like it. There's nothing wrong with a little passion in crypto. But yeah, there's plenty of trolls in this space. I've been one myself. So the chart, Kaspa. So I'm looking at it on a weekly basis, and that's kind of where my most of my analysis is going to come from, is more of a medium time frame. The reason is because, as you were saying, it's easy to get stuck in the weeds about day-to-day price. So what we need to do is look at something a little more meaningful. And this is just a weekly RSI look, and this is something we don't do a lot of, but I do find it useful. And the reason is you do have a position here where you're in a very clear channel. And what you want to see is this break back above the midline and the 46 level on the RSI. And if so, you'll probably see a range rotation alongside of it. If we take a look at this, I'm going to make my OI small and this big, hopefully. We'll make this somewhat big. And we'll make this kind of bigger. There we go. A little Bob Ross action today. We've got a nice channel here. And you can see anytime we're coming to the low side of the channels where we want to be buyers. And you can see we're getting there, So what you either want to see here is price actually make a lower low and this make a higher low, or we want to see this thing turn around and just get back above and reclaim, one, the exponential, but two, the median and 46 level on the RSI. Now, this is a project that the structure is very, very large. The question is what kind of structure do you have here? If you start losing this 2024 open on a material closing basis, like, we'll look at the yearly chart, for instance, it does look like a toppy structure, meaning that it's probably going to fill in some of this. And that is going to get a lot of people worked up, including David, because he's going to be at the receiving end of these people. Unfortunately, it's part of our lovely jobs. And I've been there. It is one of those things where, and I'll say the reason they're so upset is because they probably either A, overinvested, B, did no real research and invested just because they're looking to make money quick, which, as we all know, there's no such thing as a free lunch, even in crypto. And it is one of those things where I look at it a lot like when someone has a relative that dies and everybody starts fighting about money. Very similar things start happening when the price isn't doing what they want. They have this weird relationship with it. So
that's
what's that?
That's a great analogy.
People lose their minds over it. It's money, and it's sad that the world works that way, but it is kind of how it operates. This is a giant range. Realistically, this little gray box here, it's kind of a zone. We could extend it down even a little bit if we wanted to like here. We want to see this holding as support. And if it's lost, there is a setup in play that does validate some of these targets they were talking about down in like the 3 cent range, and backfills one, that yearly candle, retest structure, and then fills in some NPOCs. Now, that's not my main thesis as of right now, especially if I'm looking at Bitcoin as, Bitcoin's going to pull back, so the market is pulling back. But if I think Bitcoin's going to continue to rally into 2025, most things measured against USD are also going to rally, and that includes Kaspa. So, as long as we're coming into this like 9 to 11 cent region, and that's support, that is to me the place I want to be looking for buys. If for some reason we lose that, though, I do start looking from a 9 cent drop down to a 3 cent. Yeah. All right. See it. Love you. Our kids are going to their friends and their moms for the. You coming? Come here. Extra Huey's. Bye. Love you. We'll see you tonight for wrestling. All right. Anyways, back to the charts. We want to see this area be support. Hey, kids are out of school, man. Got to do what I got to do.
Love it, bro.
But Kaspa here is at support coming into it. I'm looking at this as a buying opportunity until lost. And if it is lost, my main targets do kind of generate where they're looking at. And this would really, you guys are going to get a lot more hate mail than you're getting now if it comes down to here. However, this is the area that if that happened and they weren't buying, that's their own fault. It would be, I think that would be a great area to look for at that point. But for now, it is range bound, and we don't know what this range is going to be just yet until we see resolution, as Rob was talking about, a big consolidation, a big breakout. So to me, I'm still looking to buy support. I don't see any reason why I wouldn't be. I don't see this move just ending right here. Now, we looked at the weekly time frame. We do want to go in and start looking at like the daily. Where's my daily at? It's coming into that oversold territory. You can see that if it continues to dip and then begins closing back above the 2024 open, you're going to have that like lower RSI look and higher low in price in terms of closing, because that's what you need is closing price, which could generate a little bit of bull div and put you back in contention with, at least re-challenging like, 15 to 17 cents. And I'll stay with 17 cents as being the most important level to me for upside. If you guys recall, we covered this a long time ago. I believe it was all the way over here. And I said 17.7 is the level you got to have. And you've just been absolutely hammering this thing. You finally got above it. There was a level for closures up here on like a quarterly basis that I had almost had, but for now I'm trying to set up support. So we want to see that happen. And if for some reason it bounced from here now and then reclaimed 12.5 cents by the end of the year, which is, 5 days away, crazier things have happened. That's not too far away. I do look at that this chart a little differently. I'd say, okay, we're really setting up a place here to maybe where buyers are trying to establish positions. Obviously, it's always a tug of war. And if that starts to happen, you start seeing it on the charts and reflected where the buyers are accumulating more than people are able to distribute. But yeah, people are going to freak out. Kind of sucks. But, if they're not overexposed and they have some kind of an idea of what they're doing in terms of like capital management, they buy the dips. And the problem is they don't. They're usually all in. As the meme says, I think it was Kirsten Dunst in Spider-Man, he's not broke, he's just fully allocated. There's plenty of those people in this space,
So just to
That's Caspa though.
highlight some takeaways here. So you think that we're nearing a bottom or very
Yeah.
strong support between 9 and 11
Yep.
cents, as long as that holds, and as it should, if
Stays range
Bitcoin
bound.
were to increase in value, the next level cross above 17 cents, and then maybe we're back into price discovery again, because I know the all-time high was
I
right
think if
above
you get back
21
above
cents.
17 cents after this structure, you would see probably 25 cents. I would at least look for 20 cents to be claimed again for a new high, but 25 cents would become my main target at that point. So, and the people that bought 9 to 11 cents at that point would, they'd feel smart.
Yeah.
We all have I've got this omnipotent view of the market, right? Where we
Yeah.
all feel like gods for a little bit because we're making money and other people
I
aren't. But
did
yeah.
I did have a project, well-known project that we failed to talk about a lot, and it's one that's been around, I think, since 2017, but really got its
Mhm.
run up in 2019 as far as price. That's Cosmos. Cosmos, something that I haven't seen much on the headline. They rolled out their 2025 roadmap, and a lot of people don't realize how much runs through the Cosmos SDK. They have Bitcoin on there. Avalanche I think is the biggest name that is on the Cosmos ecosystem, but they have the 2025 roadmap. So taking a look here, you got couple highlights here. So Cosmos unveiled its roadmap for the first quarter of 2025, centered on improving security performance and scalability of its hub, as well as the evolution of its interchain stack. The network update aims to optimize infrastructure, strengthen its ecosystem, preparing for growth. One of the main focuses will be improving scalability and security. The possibility of removing the LSM module will be explored to accelerate block time. So they're trying to speed this thing up, increase security, and more resources will be allocated to audits to ensure they're robust and secure. So they're going to audit, they're going to increase scalability, improve security. Your typical improvements, right? But something here is a couple things I've highlighted here. So in parallel, the development of the interchain stack will continue. A set of technologies that facilitate communication between different blockchains. One of the most important achievements will be the introduction of the version 2 of the SDK and IBC blockchain communications, also known as Eureka. This update improves networks transactional processing. Now, the roadmap also emphasizes the work of Cosmos ecosystem growth team. So not only is it just a roadmap, but the team will be responsible for supporting developers, institutions, educating, funding growth programs. And, their goal is essentially to achieve comprehensive support will be provided, ranging from training to access to resources. It seems like Cosmos has really fallen out of the limelight as far as communities talking about it, being in headlines. And, it might have something to do with the Cosmos token or the Cosmos coin, not so much being used as a gas fee model. So we don't see that, hey, as more and more chains connect and use the Cosmos SDK, it's going to be massively bullish for the price of Cosmos. Maybe that has something to do with it, but for me, I'm always going to lean on infrastructure. And I think that, you look at Chainlink as a great example. Infrastructure is king, and you know what? There's little competition against Chainlink. The same can be said with Cosmos. And as Cosmos grows, becomes more scalable, brings on more and more projects, and even outside of blockchain starts integrating traditional financial products into their ecosystem. And if they can connect the likes of the banks and institutions into the Cosmos SDK, their new version, and integrate that into their ecosystem, I would be very hard pressed to fade Cosmos Cosmos is something that was near the top 10 at one point in time. It's around the number 50 on the market cap list. So when you're talking about a project that has a big name that has fallen out of grace on market cap, I mean, look no further than Cosmos. Look at this, man. It is all the way down to $6.50. And I mean, you look at his all-time chart, it did get as high as 35, 40 bucks at $6. Failure to launch this bull market.
Rob, click on the 1 year. I think this is one of the few coins that's down on the year.
Yeah, I mean, and so, you know, pretty bullish on Avalanche. Avalanche is, I think, the biggest name on the SDK. And you know that interconnected blockchains, you know, one project working with another. I think everyone comes to the realization that it's going to happen, right? Blockchains are going to be interconnected, whether you want them to or not. And it's just the direction we're going. And it's hard to argue against Cosmos's, you know, track record, what they have already accomplished. And if, you know, their 2025 roadmap, ambitious and large, you know what I liked about their roadmap is the fact that they're looking outside of just simply saying scaling, but they're like, hey, we're going to educate, we're going to go out promote, we're going to, you know, have our development team, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. So I'm pretty bullish on Cosmos, and I know that's something we haven't talked about. I don't know, are you a buyer of Cosmos there, David? And then I don't know if you want to. I know we're running out of time, but if you wanted to maybe just give a quick thought on Cosmos's, you know, price action or chart as well, Magic, we'll kind of end the show on this one. But I'll start with you, David. What's your kind of takeaway on Cosmos right now, its value, and it's going into the bull market coming up?
I'm very torn about Cosmos. Cosmos used to be one of my. Cosmos is actually the second or third cryptocurrency that I bought with any sort of, like, I'm not talking about like $20. I'm talking about, like, you know, a couple grand, like a good buy, not a test the waters. Like, hey, I'm investing in crypto. It's like my second or third coin I bought. My biggest thing is what kind of gave it the allure when it first came into the market, the interconnectivity, the SDK. There was not a lot of competition, and now there is. When you look at something like, and you brought up Chainlink, when you think about something like Chainlink, same idea, right? When they came in, they were one of the first oracles, the gold standard. Now you have Pith and, you know, Charlie 3 and all these other ones. But I think Chainlink has done enough to continue the growth and set itself apart even further from the rest of the competitors. I don't know if Cosmos has done that. I don't know. I'm not saying the project is going away. I'm not saying it's not a good investment, but I'm kind of torn. And I have a little bit of Cosmos, gotten some airdrops to that ecosystem. But as far as putting any large amount of money in there, I just don't know, man. I'm kind of torn, and everything you went over sounds great,
but doesn't the narrative of the Kaspa narrative where, hey, if it hasn't fundamentally changed, you know, if you believe in the project, you know, the price is down, we're in a bull market. I mean, do you not share kind of the same sentiment? I mean, because I do, and I haven't put my money where my mouth is, but I think that Cosmos is undervalued. I think that what it brings to the table, it means a lot for the crypto industry, and I think that, you know, they're going to expand. People are using them. Blockchains are using them. Avalanche is really prominent in the SDK. And so for me, I look at it from like, hey, I mean, it's not broken. It's working. It's here. You know, it's expanding. And so the price is down. Why not pick it up now? I mean, I don't know. Real quick, big shout out. Can we drop a nuke? We also have a super chat from Crypto Billy, $50 super chat. You know, he says, he said, I need to see David smile. Happy New Year. Smile, David, please. And then also off the back of a $10 super chat from Billy as well earlier. And Timothy did a $5 super chat. Asked us to look at a project. We don't have time to cover it, but I appreciate the super chat anyway. So
thank you, Billy.
Yeah.
Very nice of you. We won't tell Jimmy, okay? We promise.
Yeah. So do you not share any of that Kaspa sentiment on Cosmos at all?
Well, okay, so I go back to the, why did I invest in Kaspa? Why did I invest in Cosmos? I invested in Cosmos because they were connecting all the blockchains, they were interoperable. It was that play. Now there's a lot of other ones that I think are maybe doing it better. With Kaspa, I invested in it because it's proof of work, it's extremely scalable. It was fairly, it was fair launch, right? As far as the token, it's like Bitcoin on steroids. And I turn around and I don't really see anyone doing what they're doing. Like they're about to go to 10 blocks per second as a proof of work. And so there's really no anyone coming after them or kind of doing what they do better. But I can argue that there's people doing what Cosmos originally set out to do better now. And so that's kind of where I'm at. I'm not saying you won't make money with Cosmos. You probably will, right? But are you gonna lose out on opportunity cost by having your money in Cosmos versus having it in something else that can bring you a better ROI than what you'd get with Cosmos? Again, I'm not saying Cosmos is bad. It's not going to make you a lot of money. I'm just saying these are the questions I ask myself before I deploy any capital into a project.
And then what about you, Magic? Any quick takeaways on Cosmos's price action, or maybe value?
Yeah, believe it or not, I tracked this one all the way down to the bottom when it hit all the way back here. This was one that I had. These are all levels I've had charted for I don't know how long. I need to get rid of this one actually because it's not. And you've come down looking at the yearly chart as I think it was Dave that mentioned it earlier. I've got the high and low for 2023 up specifically, just because I think those are the most important as of right now. But this box right here was derived, I believe. We've got a key level here that I had marked. You know it's old because it's not in this. I have different font and colors now for my chart, so everything's not up to date on this one. But I was looking at this level because it's the yearly pivots from 2020, 21, and then it had a 12-month consolidation low here. And the only other level I would mark, which I don't want to mark, but I'm going to, is this one down here. And the main reason being is you are at very, very key support. And if it doesn't hold, we need to know where it's likely going. And it's probably heading to like 191 at that point. Nobody wants to hear that. So 2023 low, we've tapped into major support once. We've come back to it, taken both the lows from 2021, 2022, and 2023. Never a bad thing if you start closing back above those. So you really want to see it hold 616 here. And if it does, it's kind of already done a little bit of the move here out of this region where you've come back up to the 24 open and the 2023 open. But more importantly, when you look at this as a whole from this drop where it dropped down below this 6-month average of price in the 23 high, we just include all this as one range. You've come back and basically you're playing, kick the can down the road between this high volume node and this one on who's going to have the point of control. It's really irrelevant. You're just kind of looking at this as a zone at this point. The only thing you really want to take away from this type of a volume structure as of right now is that you have almost no volume at the top. You got almost no volume at the bottom. So you may see some consolidation down here and fill this out, but not a terrible thing because that gives you a nice round D shape, like a bell. And that's what you want. That is indicative of really large consolidations that could, I argue, be considered somewhat healthy. It's still more of a neutral aspect, but at least it's not bearish because you want to see a balanced profile. So you may see this thing rally back up and actually get another rejection if it does and remain range bound down here, which most people don't want to hear that because they want it to go back to all-time highs. I'm not saying it can't. I'm just saying that I'm a buyer at the low end of this volume profile and a seller at the high end. If you're looking for more traditional TA, it's obviously in a falling channel, right? If you go out to the RSI yet again.
What is that high end of that channel price-wise?
About 15 to 16 bucks. Okay. Yeah, somewhere around there, right around here, about 15, 16. Low end on it's 420. Yeah, 420 up to 616 is what I had as a buy zone if you were buying spot, obviously. And if it's lost, I'm looking for it to make its way down to this region, unfortunately. And the setup is there. We just talked about it on Bitcoin. It's a reversal. It's the 3 drives pattern yet again. This is actually a very specific pattern, and it requires one thing, that gold pocket. And this is actually the gold pocket about right here on this one. So timing wise, it would put this thing, if it failed, all the way out in like July, and so that would be where it'd be at. But it would just validate that if, you came down and you started giving up this like $4, $5 support zone, your next target's really like $2, and it's down there, but it is the place you want to buy. And then the first target of this is actually going to be the overall gold pocket and then eventually the high potentially. Kind of like what Bitcoin did. We talked about it earlier where it made that 3 drives. And if anyone has questions about that, I actually just posted on Twitter what the 3 drives pattern is, and it's got like a little picture, so you can find that in some of my replies if you want to go look at it, or you can just Google it. It'll tell you. But that's how I'm seeing it. Probably range bound, but not a bad thing. It's one of those things where if you're bullish, you're probably looking at this in terms of just a channel. That's how I would see it. Just some kind of a structure like this. We got the wrong line. There we go. We'll just use that one. It'll be fine. So, something like this where it's just making a channel, and we want to see this support hold. We want to see this make its way. And once it's back above these opens and those points of control that were there, you might see that break back to this resistance zone here. But to me, I don't like the chart in its current fashion. And the only reason is it's got that Christmas tree look to it. It had that massive run up and then it came straight down. Very Filecoin-esque to me. Filecoin being much more exaggerated, of course. I think that was the best example I've ever seen. But doesn't mean it can't. If they're actually building and doing things, I'm a firm believer that just like Chainlink, where it broke out of that, like, what was it, almost like 2 years down there in that low, that can very well happen to something like Cosmos. It's just, strong fundamentals are generally represented in strong charts. And so if this one starts showing strength and the fundamentals are also coordinating with that, yeah, sure, you could see a good rally out of this. And maybe one day it's one of the winners. We don't know. We don't know. We just need to keep an eye on these things and not write anything off just because it's not the flavor of the week or popular, because that's how you end up missing out on a Google or an Apple stock one day.
Yeah.
So that's all I'll say.
Well, thanks for looking that one over. I will wrap it up. Thank you so much for you, Magic, and thanks, David, for tuning in. I know you're on vacay, so thanks to the two of you. Merry Christmas to both of you as well. We will be back tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific time. With that said, we're gonna wrap this thing up. And we'll see you guys tomorrow. We'll see you next week, Magic. And thanks again.
Yep.
Appreciate it. All right.
Hey, guys.
Stay tapped in for big facts, no capping. With Bitcoin, if you're in, then you win. We divide the pie with no fraction. It's Big Rob, David. I split the game, but they gave it. Named according to your favorite. I got dry powder, why save it? To the OGs, new beginners. Special shout out to the whale members. Buy the dip, sell winners. Ain't really nothing you can tell sinners. Tune in for the latest new flavors. They gonna teach us mean coins. They polarizing like barbecue chicken pizzas. I laugh with a major grin. Laggers, we trade them in. Baddies, they came to sin. And sinners gon' play to win. Screaming hola till my bags are flowing over. Hold ya to the moon and to the solar. Won't don't be letting FOMO control ya. It's over when the finger tornado close ya.